to white knuckle it to do a good job. And I'm not in that state all the time. And I think that, you mentioned the personal trainers or, people who are like always working on themselves, that you have to keep working, you have to keep working. If I get lazy, it shows, so, I don't know.
Well, I love all that. And I do just want to go back and dissect a couple of things that you said, because I think there's some real gold to be extracted. You said you made the decision. And I think that's something that we talk about, and the people who've been in this group here, the Core Confidence Challenge, we've talked about that. That was day 2. When it comes to a commitment, right? The Latin root of the word decide it means to cut out all the other options, right? So when you said, look, I had challenges in the beginning, all of these I'm not good enough thoughts and feelings were going through me, but I made the choice that I was going to go and play full out or go all in on this thing that I loved and that I was passionate about. And then once you make the decision, that next thing, because people can decide, right? Look at New Year's Eve. We all decide, hey, I'm going to stop doing this or I'm going to start doing that, right? The decision is not always the most challenging part, right? It ends up being the action that we take, and not just the one time and it didn't work. I mean, whether you're a marketer, right, or you're someone like a personal trainer, or you want to get feel better and or look better in your body or in your relationships, whatever it is, it takes consistent daily action over and over and over and over and over and over again, and falling down flat on your face and picking yourself back up. And I know as an actor, you and I both have experienced that 100 times over. But I think it's beautiful, and it's exactly what we've been talking about. And you can see that, your success, it's not overnight, right? It's almost a lifetime of building and building and building. And when you show up being as prepared as you are, when you show up having had all of those no's and all of those doors closed, and yet you kept pushing on, is when that grit you're talking about really comes into play. And people go, oh yeah, we love this guy, and we're gonna move forward this guy. One other thing, when you said you recognized your childhood trauma and you brought that into not only your work, how you recognize that the pain of those things have held you back, and yet, what was it that, and how do you still, fight through that childhood trauma to do what it is that you do today? Because people need to recognize and discover that they have stories, right? Stories about their childhood trauma, stories about the things that have happened to them that can either hold them back or serve them. So I guess the real question is, how do you use your childhood trauma to serve you?
Well, I think that it's a mixed bag for me. I of course, my childhood was so wonderful in so many respects, and we were, bohemians who just were not playing by any of the rules. My family was, hitchhiking around the country and living in tents, and I learned certain things, like you don't need money to be happy, and you can sort of chart your own course in the world, and you don't have to play by the rules in general. And those things have all served me. But I did also, I wasn't really properly socialized, and I was insecure because of it. And so as I get older, there's these two competing forces from my childhood psychology at play, and I'm trying to recognize the things that serve me and recognize the things that don't serve me. And I do a lot of therapy, and probably have unhealthy coping tools that I deploy from time to time, but
we all do.
I'm thinking about, and I'm trying to be conscious about as I move through life.
And that's so beautiful, because it's so easy to get into a situation like this, or whether you come on in my sort of universe, or whether I'm sitting in your universe trying to be like, yes, well, I have it all figured out, and that's a bunch of horse poop. You know what I mean? Look, no, I am a core confidence coach in addition to being a performer, but I will be the first to say, look, I don't have it all figured out. And I'm continuing to grow and learn as much as you are. And I really appreciate that you would say something like, yeah, look, I have some unhealthy coping mechanisms that I use, but at least I'm conscious about it. And we have a lot of really wonderful people in our audience who have some great questions that I would love to share with you, if you don't mind for a second. Robin writes, I have a bad habit of quitting when I'm so close to success. Do you have any ideas for someone with this issue? Any thoughts there?
Well, I can just reflect that I think that I was doing that for a long time, where it was just like I didn't have the core belief that I deserved that the success or that I was good enough, and so in various different ways, I think I sabotaged myself at the 11th hour when and it was just like I hadn't yet come to believe that I deserved it or was good enough.
Yeah, it's amazing what we do.
There is really a challenge, but it's possible.
Yeah, no, and the thing is that is why really discovering those stories and discovering how we really feel and then questioning those thoughts and feelings is so important, because we can be going out, like you said, and we can be doing what it is that we want to do and like doing all the steps, right? If we have 10 steps, we're at step number 8, and then all of a sudden we either lose motivation, we feel like maybe we want to change our minds, or like this thing happens that sabotages, and we sabotage ourselves, or we allow other people to sabotage us. And like, what is that? That's exactly what you said, a story in your mind that says, I really don't deserve this. Or the other flip side of that is, oh my God, if I actually get this thing, what am I going to do then? It's like the Larry David problem. It's like with Seinfeld, it's like, oh my God, they want another 12 episodes of Seinfeld. I have no idea how I'm going to do this, right? And so it's the chaos of abundance sometimes gets in our way, for sure. Now, speaking of social situations, our good friend Facebook user says, do you have any thoughts on how to be confident in social situations? You said that you weren't, because of your bohemian childhood, you weren't exactly socialized. And I understand that, because I too had a back and forth and sort of around all the place childhood. But now as an adult, and I can even admit, I don't really feel super comfortable in social situations as it is. But how have you found being who you are and doing the things that you have done, like different cons and different sort of huge social situations? How do you find your comfort there and your confidence there?
That's interesting. I think for a long time I was really uncomfortable in social situations, and I guess this might even be another this might be an example of unhealthy coping mechanisms. But I think I developed some skills that I just realized helped me navigate social situations. So when I was like in high school, I started deploying self-deprecating humor, and I realized, I can make people laugh. So that's a good way for me to ingratiate myself into social circles. And then I found other ways that I could navigate the world of social interaction, and I found that I was more. I took on characters. I started doing accents. I was sort of a class clown for a long time, and I think I hid a little bit in being a performer, that became a way for me to navigate social situations. I really, honestly, I'm only now starting to feel comfortable around humans. It's a process, man.
And this year of all years, it is wild. I mean, we learned so much about ourselves. And what I say about 2020 is that, 2020, and I didn't come up with this, but I heard it's like 2020 either revealed who you really were or it exposed who you really were, which is like so true. And so I know you have a few minutes left with us and you have a busy schedule. I'm so grateful that you chose to come and spend time on this bonus day with me. I adore you. I can't wait until whether it's at a con or somewhere or some way that we can hang out. Because it's been far too long. But speaking of 2020, one of the last questions I want to give you here is from Miss Ling, I would assume, and forgive me if you're Mr. Ling, with everything going on, or you're non-binary, with everyone going on these days, how do you find the motivation to not just be stagnant? Because I can imagine that, like, if I were someone who didn't know you, I could see, Misha Collins, upon high, has plenty of money, has, the fame, has the house and the kids and the wife and it would be easy for you to just check out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you find the motivation with the abundance that you, and we all have problems, right? But with the abundance that you have, and a lot of people assume you have, how do you find the motivation not to just be like, I'm out?
Well, I mean, I think this is going to sound pretty platitudinous, but I think everyone knows that, success actually doesn't breed happiness. It's what you do with your success that breeds happiness. And I happen to be somebody who feels like my purpose on the planet is to try to help other people, like I think you are as well. And I think it's interesting. I mean, you're talking about 2020. 2020 has been a year with so much suffering and so many different layers of pain throughout society, both on like the personal medical level and on the, social, racial, structural level. There's so much work to be done in the world to help, lift all of us up a little bit more. So that for me is the motivation. So, a year like 2020 has been 2020 and frankly into 2021, it's been sort of a constant reminder that there's so much work to do and that there's a lot of suffering out there. Yeah. And that none of us can afford to rest on our laurels. So when I start to feel stagnant, and it happens all the time, I really just have to look out the window at what's going on in the world and get that reminder. And there are people in my life who are really devoted to doing good work in the world, and they serve as inspiration. Like, oh right, I got to get on it. Well, I got to be more like Stacey Abrams. There's one other thing that I wanted to say that just sort of percolated up in my very foggy early morning brain today while I was lying in bed reflecting on the question of confidence. And that was that I think I've also come to the table with the deck stacked in my favor. Like, I am a white male growing up at the height of white male ascendancy in America, where things are, it's handed to me on a silver platter, and they always have been. I mean, I was raised, poor and had some struggles, but for the most part, the system is set up for me in particular to succeed. And that privilege also bestows a certain level of confidence in the world. And I just wanted to recognize that there are a lot of people who don't have the deck stacked in their favor like that. And there are a lot of people for whom childhood, traumas are not the only thing holding them back, but there are these bigger structural problems, and inequalities that make it harder to succeed and harder to feel confident or appreciated or like you're good enough. I don't know. I think that 2020 was also a year of learning, for me, and for the first time, I think, recognizing how my place of privilege has been something that I've exploited. Yeah, I don't know. That's just something I know. I don't want to get too political about it, but
well, I think you bring up a really good point. Obviously, we in America, especially, and in other parts of the world, are dealing with really coming to grips with what white privilege is, and how that has served and also not served other people. But I would ask you this as we wrap up here our time with you. What is it that you want people to know most? Because look, you have the random acts, you have wonderful charitable work that you're doing. You're obviously doing other work in the business as well. But there are a lot of people on here who are watching live and who will see this on a replay who just really think the world of you, you know, like Miss Dee Dee there. So very many people look to you for leadership, for better or worse. And so if there was one thing, and I'm putting you on the spot here, if there's one thing that you would want people to know that you learned in 2020 about yourself, and then here moving into 2021 and beyond, that would really help them, because I know a lot of the people in our world, a lot of the people who come and will support you at cons, will support wonderful shows like Supernatural. I know a lot of people, and especially in 2020, but a lot of people just face a lot of challenges. And again, like I said, they look to you for that leadership. So is there something that you learned about yourself in 2020 when it came to who you are, whether that's in your body, your spirituality, your relationships, or the business itself, that you could share with all of us that will be that little bright light that helps us get through the rest of this year and hopefully into a place where we'll all feel a bit freer again? No pressure.
No, I don't know. I think that one thing that I've taken away from this year is a greater understanding of the fact that there's actually real, deep, and abiding inspiration in empathy. I think if we put ourselves in the shoes of other people and look out for the well-being of our neighbors in the world, it just fuels us. I know that's true for myself. But when things get hard, I think we have two choices, and one is to like wall up and protect ourselves, and the other is to reach out and try to help others and recognize that we're part of a human family and that we can't get through things on our own. And that has been, I think, an epiphany for me of 2020. It's like, we're in this together. We as human beings need to work together to make this world a better place.
Absolutely. And I love the work that you're doing with Random Acts. And for those people who don't already know, where can we find out more about Random Acts and about the sort of empathy and empathetic work that you're doing?
Well, we have a website, which is randomacts.org.
Randomacts.org. There it is. As a matter of fact, let me do this. I'll put up a little banner later on that says randomacts.org. But look, I just want to again thank you for your time. I know that you're going to be doing some traveling, that you have some things coming up, and so I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. You're absolutely, what you see is what you get, and I appreciate that about you. And thank you for spending your time here with us, talking about confidence and the clarity and the commitment and the creativity and the certainty that comes from the work that you have done, and from really just owning who you are, whether that's healthy some days, unhealthy other days. I really appreciate you. Thanks, man.
I appreciate you too. Nice to see you.
Good to see you again too.
Sunday.
Yeah, you too. All right. So